No. You are your audience. Like younger you is your audience. Make the content that younger you desperately needs. And that's something that really only you can create. Because if you filter it through that lens, what does Kevin from 5 years ago need? I don't want to spend 5 minutes getting through the intro, because that means that's 5 minutes less talking to you that brings value to your show.
Podcast Growth Nation, welcome back to another episode of Podcast Growth University, where we talk all things podcasting all the time. Today we're going to talk about YouTube, so I guess it's a little bit different. We have a wonderful guest today, the one and only Evan Carmichael. Before we start, I just want to throw some of your numbers out because I think they're super important.
Okay.
3.83 million subscribers as of today, 7,847 videos, which is truly mind-blowing, and over 658 million views on YouTube.
Okay.
Simple question to start. Which of those numbers are you most proud of?
Most proud of? I don't know that I'm proud really of any of them. I think we probably pay the most attention to the subscriber count number, but what I'd be most proud of is the feedback. It's like the comments. The people who would say, this video changed my life. Like at the end of the day, it's impact. I think it's, at least for me, I want to feel like the work that I do matters, is important. And I used to feel bad about not celebrating milestones. So when we crossed 1 million subscribers, it's like, oh, we should do some kind of live stream party or something, because that's kind of what you're supposed to do. And I didn't really enjoy it that much. And we did it just for the community, because they were like, what are you going to do for 1 million? It's like, okay, I don't know, we'll do something together. And then when I hit 2, I was like, I really didn't want to do it. But they're like, what are you going to do? And so we did something again. I was like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. And so we haven't celebrated any. Like, for me, the celebration is the daily fact that what we're doing matters, and people are leaving comments that it's touching their lives, and not so much hitting, whatever benchmark or numbers. So proud is just an interesting question. I don't know that I'm proud of any of it, but the one we would pay the most attention to would be the subscriber count. To me, that feels like it's the most, somebody viewed the video, doesn't mean it had an impact on them,
right.
But if they then choose to subscribe to the channel, it's like the closest numerical thing that we can say, hey, like, it touched you enough to want to subscribe to the channel. So,
out of all the mentors and people in the industry, the space that we have had the opportunity to work closely with, I think you have given the best advice. Nothing against anybody else.
Okay.
I messaged you like 2 months ago, and I said, hey, Evan, long time no talk, my friend. I got a question for you.
What was your question?
How do you answered it. It was wonderful.
Okay.
How do we get more speeches? Do you remember what you said?
No, what did I say?
You said, whatever you're doing in terms of outreach, 100x that.
That's good advice.
And I laughed, and then I told Alan, he's like, yeah, that's an Evan answer. Why do you give advice like that as opposed to, because some people might say that's, I don't know, not negative. It's very straightforward, but I think it's extremely accurate. Have you always given advice that way, or is that something that has developed over time of experience?
Well, I mean, that's very kind. I don't know that I just always nail it and get the best advice in every scenario.
I'm grateful for it because it resonates with me.
Just ask my wife. You probably can. I think it's a lot easier when you're dealing with a person than a group. So when I'm making YouTube content, you're speaking to the masses. When I'm on a stage, I'm speaking to a group, but they're usually here for something. When I'm speaking to an individual one-on-one, it's a lot easier to do what I call wearing their skins. Like, I'm trying to be you. And the idea with that is most people, when they're giving advice, they give the advice of what they would do. It's like, hey, Kevin, if I was in your shoes, here's what I would do. Where instead, the wear your skin concept is, I'm trying to be you, but knowing what I know. So it's like, what should you do knowing what I know? And it then becomes the willingness to give advice that you wouldn't take yourself. Like, I wouldn't do the same thing. Now, in terms of you, I know you, and I know that you never quit. That's your Instagram hashtag. Never quit kid is your handle. And like, that is something that I could just tell you what to do, and if you did that, you would win. Where somebody else, they might need a lot more hand-holding, or a lot more, hey, let me ask you this, a lot more just cuddling along the way to get them to do it. And what I found is, like, the closer you are to me, the higher the expectations become. And even just before we went live here and filming this, we're here in Trinidad Salsa. Alex is my partner in like running this business, and there were a couple of minor things that were not right. It's like the Wi-Fi password wasn't written down properly, and 2 people who are in here trying to get online, like couldn't get online, and Alex wasn't here. And he set all this up. Like he had a late night last night. He comes in, he's the first one here in the morning, and he's like, we need to get the chair set up. We need to be here for the camera guy. We need to like get all this stuff set up. And he's probably exhausted from last night and setting up the whole day and like doing errands and running around to make all this work. But like the Wi-Fi password was wrong. And I come in, it's like, Alex, this is like amateur hour here, man. What are we doing? Well, like people can't get on. And he's like, yeah, I know, right? It's like the standards go up. And if somebody else looked at that to be like, man, this guy is such a jackass, right? It's like, no, like he needs that. And people want to be, when you're working with achievers, they want to be held to a higher standard. And so one of the greatest gifts you can give people is your standards. And that's what achievers will look for. So Kevin, like how many people are you reaching out to do speaking gigs? You know, like 1 a month? Well, WTF, man, what do you expect is gonna happen? 100 times that, you'll get more results, right? So it's like, it just depends on I would never do that to a big audience because it's not gonna land well with them. But to somebody who's in front of me, who have context of, who I know wants to play a bigger game and they're actually settling and kind of coasting in this thing right now, that's actually the greatest thing you can gift them. When I put mentoring hat on to an individual, it's like, again, how can you gift people your standards? I mean, our funny story about when
yeah.
Right? Did they know? Does your audience know about that?
No, they don't know.
Oh, should we tell it?
Yeah, sure, of course.
So we're at an event. Was that the first time we met?
No, we had met once before then.
In person?
Yeah, we came up here and then we asked you.
Okay, so we have context. So first off, I love this guy. I was on my tour in 2019 and I was doing interviews like every day promoting my tour, like multiple interviews every day. And I initially scheduled a 30-minute call with him and Alan, his partner. And I loved it so much that call went way longer, at least double. I don't remember how long.
Yeah.
I'd already arrived at my place and like we're still talking because I love the questions that he asked. Then he came here and we went deeper. And then we were both speaking at an event in Florida. And at dinner that night, the first night, or no, it was the last night, at dinner, he pulls out his laptop. He's like, hey, would you look at my YouTube channel? I'm like, we're trying to grow this. Give me some feedback on what we're going to do. And we looked at it, and I spent like half the dinner
At least.
looking at your channel,
At least.
ignoring everybody else, and giving you feedback on your thumbnails, and told him, here's what you need to do. And get blank done by tomorrow. I don't remember what the blank was, but he was supposed to get something done by tomorrow. So tomorrow, the next day comes, and I'm doing this meetup in the hotel lobby, and we have all these people there kind of who are from my community, not part of the event. And then Kevin and Alan come down, and the first thing I say is like, so did you get your thumbnail done? And he's like, no, I didn't get it done. And you kind of threw Alan under the bus a little bit.
Tried?
Yeah. He's like, well, Alan said he wasn't going to remember. He's like, that's not a good enough excuse. You know, like for me, I'm investing my time into that. Like, you better go and do the work.
Yeah.
And I'll remember it. So if I give advice to somebody, like the next time when they come, like, did you do the thing that we talked about last time? Especially when it's like the next day. So then on the plane ride home, Kevin's off, worked on the thumbnail, connecting the Wi-Fi, sending it to me. I did it. It's like, okay, great, man, let's go. Like,
Little late. You challenged me. I said, I hate flying. I'm not a fan of flying. And he said, I want you to do a video when the plane is taking off.
Yeah.
Did it. Phone didn't capture it for some reason, so I did it again, and then I ended up sending that to you.
But like and you were working on your thumbnails too, right?
Yeah.
What we talked about. And so that's the, like, other people would have let you off. Like Alan in this scenario let you off. It's like, okay, it's fine. You guys were presenting, you had a late night, I don't know what happened that night, whatever. Evan won't remember, don't worry about it, right? Other people around us, even sometimes our best friends, even sometimes our partners, even the people who we respect still let us off the hook for the things. And that's, like, again, the greatest gift you can give people is your standards. And that's a very achievery message, right? Yep. And most people don't connect or resonate with that. And so I love both. Like the believe message is very easy to understand, and that's like mass audience message. But then the closer and closer you get, the more the love becomes tough love. Instead of a hug, it becomes a push. Like, let's go, man. What are we doing here? Why are you still asking this question? This is supposed to get done.
podcasters are listening to this on YouTube as well. What do you optimize for when you're talking to a larger audience? Is it just relatability and resonance, or is it one big takeaway?
Their own audience, or like you're a host or you're a guest?
You're a host.
You're a host. I think the best podcast hosts are really creating content for who they were 10 years ago. So if you are going to start a new podcast, really, or it's like you're like, we're here, we're a podcast nation, here we go, starting the show. This, ideally, you are talking about and you're asking questions to the Kevin from 10 years ago or 5 years ago who's like trying to get his podcast off the ground.
Right.
Not just the tactics, but the mindset. What were you struggling with? Where were the holes? What were your belief systems? And most people right now who are listening to this are where you used to be. That's why they're listening. That's why they're following. They're hoping to see how you see the world, peek behind the curtains and learn about Kevin and how you think, but also the strategies. And so I think the mistake that a lot of podcasters make is they're only thinking about the audience. Like, okay, what would my audience like? Instead of, no, you are your audience. Like, younger you is your audience. Make the content that younger you desperately needs. And that's something that really only you can create. Because if you filter it through that lens, what does Kevin from 5 years ago need? It changes how you show up to an interview. It changes the questions that you ask me or whoever else you bring on the show. So yeah, if you're the host, that's what I would run the filter through. What does the you from 5 years ago need? And then ask those questions. And I think the best episodes are the ones where you are admitting some kind of vulnerability, where you are struggling with something, and we help you through it. And the lens that a lot of people see it as, well, I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to make it about me. I'm trying to help the audience. Yeah. But no, it's like they're connected to you and your story. And knowing that you struggled with blank, and then that you have the courage to ask people to help you with it, that is the most inspiring thing. Instead of the typical podcast, I've been on a ton of podcasts over the years where they're asking the same question, like, what would you tell your 18-year-old self? I've been asked that question, and I'm happy to keep answering that question. But the most frustrating part is when they stop the recording and then say, man, that was great. Man, can I ask you? Like, dude, that's what you start with next time. And we've actually made a training video. So if we're going to do a podcast together, we made a video that my assistant sends out before me, highlighting all the mistakes that I think podcasters make before they do an interview to try to avoid them. I don't remember what's in there, but some of the quick ones are that, like, ask the question you deeply care about. How can I help you? Like, turn this into a coaching session. Instead of just talking to what you think your audience cares about, tell me what you care about. I'm here for a reason, I hope, right? Like, I hope when you bring on a guest, it's not just about clout and views, but you actually care about them in some way, right? So ask the question that you deeply want an answer to that maybe they've never asked before, which is why I love you and Alan, because you guys ask me questions like, man, these guys are like awesome at asking questions. And you'd done your homework before we came on. Next, like, don't introduce them. Don't introduce the guest with their LinkedIn bio. So I'll tell them, I'll tell people in the video, like, if you're gonna do an introduction, one, never read the bio, because now you have the same boring intro that everybody else has. And if I'm there listening to it, your guest starts to check out. Yeah. Oh, he's reading my bio. Okay, I got 40 seconds now just to here and doing nothing, waiting. So you have unoriginal content, and you're losing your guest. But if you let off with if you're gonna do some kind of intro, say what is meaningful to you. Why are they here? You say, hey, we got Evan Carmichael here, and he's here because of all the people that I've talked to, he's given me the best advice. And I don't care if you missed, I'm not pissed that you didn't say that I'm a whatever, Inc. magazine speaker, yada, 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 right? It's a more meaningful introduction, and now your guest is way more engaged. When you ask me questions that everybody else asks, you get the default autopilot answers. So if you ask me, what would you tell your younger self? I have an answer for that. I've been asked that a million times. So I default back into my typical answer I give everybody else. I'm less engaged. Versus if you give me a problem that we're working through and I'm trying to help, I'm way more engaged. You get a better episode, you get more information, and the guest is way more involved as well. It's like, man, that Kevin guy, like, he asks really good questions. This is the only reason why you're here.
I know.
Because you asked great questions.
I appreciate it. 5
years ago, right? I still remember, right? And we're trying to set up a business to help you even get more clients because of the great questions that you asked.
I appreciate it.
5 years ago, right? right? It still stands out because most people don't do that. And Kevin's presenting at our mastermind in 2 days, and we're thinking about like what are the topics that you could talk about that's uniquely Kevin. I hope you don't mind sharing the story. And he came up with this framework. I forget what it was, like expert or something, and every letter stands for something. It's like, Kevin, that's good and it'll be valuable, but like that's not something that is uniquely you, right? Like the word expert, like what is E? You even remember what you came up with?
No, I was just kind of winging it.
Yeah, that's fine. And it's fine, and it's great, and I'm sure people would love it, and you can teach something new, but it's like not uniquely Kevin. And I think like what makes Kevin so magical? It's like he finds these questions that other people don't ask, and what people have a hard time doing when they're making content is being able to pull it out of themselves. So if I don't always have Kevin with me at my hip asking these questions, how can I think of that myself and put that into my content? And so that's what, I don't know what you're gonna do with that, but I'm excited. That's the new presentation. And so like, that's what makes you magical. And so the more with, podcasting, if you're a host, to bring out the best from your guest, ask them questions that you genuinely care about, do an intro that is actually meaningful to you instead of just their standard boring thing. The fear is that they're gonna get upset. But they're probably not. Like, what's your intro? They're there for a reason. The intro's not going to be like, I think this is the worst human being on the planet, so I'm going to interview them, right? It's like, it's probably not going to be bad. Yeah. And it just gets them way more connected to you, and we're in it faster. So there's usually a time limit. Like the guest will probably have some kind of time limit for how long they'll be with you. And so I don't want to spend 5 minutes getting through the intro, because that means that's 5 minutes less. Yeah. Talking to you that brings value to your show.
And I always say the same thing about the ending. You've been on a ton of podcasts. I'm sure you've gotten to the end and then they start talking about their products and their services while you're sitting there with a little smile on your face waiting for the episode to end. So that's always advice I give as well. So talking on the other end of things, as a content creator, why is it important, and is it important in your opinion, to be a guest on other platforms? Last time you and I talked, I had only been on like 200 other podcasts. Since then, I've been on like 700. Being on the other side of it has helped me tremendously on this side. Do you think it's valuable that other people become guests or collaborators on other YouTube channels? What's your thought on that?
Well, it's opportunity cost of time, right? So is it valuable? Yes. So are other things. If it's doing that versus crocheting or something, then it's an obvious yes. It's how else you're going to use the time. And I think it'll come down to where are you the most magical? So if you want to start a podcast, being on other people's podcasts will help you see the other side, right? You get to see like I made that video for people to try to help their podcast get better so that when we're doing our session, you're going to get the most out of me for your show, right? So doing that helps you get better. It helps you ask better questions and just get a sense for how other people are doing it. I'm a great counterpuncher. I like to be with somebody, and why I love you guys is like you pulled things out of me that I wasn't thinking about before. And so I work well just in terms of creating content when I'm with somebody who's giving me something to chew on. Some people aren't like that. Some people hate doing that, right? So I think it's just opportunity cost of time. If you want to start a great podcast, would you get more value out of you being on 700 podcasts or you studying every Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, insert whoever you love podcast and seeing how they do it? How do you learn, right? Or would your time be better spent hiring Kevin to sit there with you and coach you through, right? It's like, well, how do you learn? Okay. So opportunity cost of time. I think there's diminishing returns between 200 and 700. You're learning less each time. I do it because I love it. I just love, I love helping, I love serving, I've been tons of people's first guest. I've been their first guest and they didn't release the episode and never launched their podcast, right? That happens, whatever, next. But I just love the vibe, and every now and then somebody pulls out unique questions. So I find that I struggle looking backwards. And we had a session here where I think it was Alan asked me, what percentage of your time do you spend past, present, future, right? That was like 4 years ago or something, I still remember. And I said, I'm 0% past, 85% present, 15% future. That made me think in the moment, but now it's my default answer anytime somebody asks you that question. So you get more autopilot mode. but I struggle looking backwards. So I got asked some questions today that I didn't have the answer to because it's looking historic. And like, I don't know when that starts. Now I have to think about it. And it's almost a worse answer because I don't have an answer going backwards. And now as I think about it, I'll have a better answer the next time it comes around. But I don't naturally go there. And so it's great when other people do because they pull out things from me that I would never have thought of myself. So I find that valuable for me.
Yeah.
I'm not really learning a whole bunch being on a bunch of podcasts. So if you're going from 200 to 700, you're probably not learning that much anymore from being on more shows. So are you going because of the exposure? They have an audience? Are you going because maybe they become a client? It's more of a biz dev relationship. Are you going because you're getting paid to go on the show? Are you going because you just love the interaction? Like as long as you have there's a case, because the skills you're learning are maybe non-existent between 200 and 700. So why should somebody do it? Well, opportunity cost of time. Like, what are you hoping to accomplish through this? And is that the best way to achieve that objective or not?
What's going on, guys? My name is Austin. If there's one thing that I find super valuable is his expertise on how to position the podcast to the right audience and fit the content into the overall business plan. And frankly, when we work together, he challenges me a lot. There were some tough conversations that he initiated with me so that I can really grow in the business. Besides the coaching part, the editing team does amazing work with editing and show notes and staying on top of all communications. Overall, my experience working with Kevin has really been top-notch.
You've interviewed many people. What were the most impactful things that helped you become a better interviewer, whatever that means to you? Because I know a lot of people, I've been the first on many shows, and people say, like, I'm super nervous because you're this, whatever. It's like, I'm nobody. Nobody knows who I am, trust me. But as we get going, they get more comfortable and more comfortable. How did you work your way up to interviewing the type of people that you've been interviewing? What was that process like? Were you nervous in the beginning and then you just said, I'm gonna be myself? What was that process like for you?
I started off safe.
What does that mean? What's safe mean?
Safe questions, safe intros, safe. I mean, I did all the things I'm saying not to do, right? I mean, I learned through experience. Like, don't ask boring questions. I asked a lot of boring questions, and luckily, I had increasingly better guests who could carry a conversation even if I sucked, right? Like my first big interview was Tony Robbins. And I was so nervous to have Tony Robbins on my channel because it's Tony and he had an impact on my life. It was the first personal development book I ever read. And it's freaking Tony Robbins. Like, this is awesome. And he's been on 3 or 4 times over the years on the channel doing interviews. And Tony, like, he's always just great. You could be the worst interviewer, ask the stupidest question, and he'll like flip it and find a way to make it awesome, right? So that's not necessarily a good indication of my skill. It's just Tony can save anything, and he's a great storyteller. So I started off boring and safe questions and not willing to offend, and also massively stressing out before an interview. You know, like before Tony, the first time I had Tony on, the whole week getting up to it, I was like basket case. Like I couldn't focus on work. I just watching more, researching more, and that was a lot of stress.
What year was that? How long ago was that?
I don't know. It's on my channel. 5 years ago?
Okay.
6 years ago? I don't know. So yeah, I'm not good looking backwards. No, this is my first interview, but it didn't happen.
Okay.
It didn't happen. So I stressed out for a week, and then the day of, like a couple hours before, his assistant messaged to say, Tony can't make it, an emergency has come up, we're gonna have to reschedule. And I was devastated. Like the only thing worse than doing the interview was like not doing the interview. I did all this time for like nothing. And that happens, you know, busy schedules, launches, whatever, like that happens. And it took another, I think, 2 years, at least a year before he came back. Then I'm nervous again, all over again for that one to happen. And it ended up being great, you know, like nothing's ever bombed, but just the story you tell yourself. What I've tried to work towards is trusting that I'm gonna be great. I'm gonna ask great questions because I care about the person, I'm curious about them. So something magical is gonna come. And I might do a little research before, but I don't spend a week stressing out. And it's really just the day of and maybe the hour before. If it's a big one, maybe the whole day of. But I try to do them early in the morning, so I'm not stressed out the whole day. And it started with me, okay, I'm gonna find a thread. I just need to find a thread that I'm gonna pull on. So I might have 7 questions on my list to talk to them about, but the best thing to do is not ask all 7 questions. It's to keep pulling on a thread. Because the most frustrating thing to see in a podcast is somebody asks a question and they give a great answer. It's like, follow up on that. Like, pull on that thread. Let's get some real nuggets. And you say, okay, great. Number 2, and they just move on. Like, are you kidding me? And if you're curious and it's helping you solve a problem for yourself, you're gonna wanna go deeper and ask more questions. So you may only get through 2 of your questions because you ask so many follow-up questions. And I think that becomes the best interview. So my strategy now that I find the most helpful is I try to watch their other interviews and I try to see where did the host not go deeper that I would have. Not that they did it wrong, because their curiosity is different. So I remember we had Matthew McConaughey on. I was stressed out because I don't know anything about Matthew McConaughey. I thought it was McConaughey, right? I didn't even know how to say his name. And all I know about him, he's an actor, right? What do I know about,
No.
why is he on my channel? At least if they were a content creator, I have seen their content, having Gary Vee on or even Deepak Chopra on or whatever, like I have a sense of what they do. I have no idea. What are we talking about? Acting? I don't care. I don't follow Hollywood. And so I was stressed out. But what I did was I watched his interview with Lewis Howes and I watched his interview with Tom Bilyeu and I watched some of his other stuff. And I got to see, first off, the patterns. This is another strategy I love using, is if they've done other interviews, especially someone's on a launch or tour, they're doing tons of interviews, they default to the same 6 stories all the time. So Matthew, while he was on his tour, kept talking about the story of him going to Africa and wrestling with the tribal chief and like all of this stuff. And that's like a 7-minute story. And if you only have him for half an hour, it's like 7 minutes has been chewed up by this same story that he just told on all the other. So what I will do is I'll tell the story for him. So you went to Africa, you met the tribal chief, and like in 15 seconds, 30 seconds, probably 30 seconds, I'll tell the story for him. Because that's not unique content. I've already heard the story, and my audience has probably already heard the story from somewhere else. And so after I summarize the story in 30 seconds, I'll say, and so I'm curious, how did you blank? And now I'm pulling something out of him that he hasn't already told, because if I don't, he's probably gonna default to the same story anyway. So we shortcut it and then ask a follow-up question that I wish the other guys had asked, or maybe they would have too, but they ran out of time because they had to sit through the same story, right? So finding other interviews, if you can, depends on how big the guest is, how many, like if you're interviewing Kevin, he's done 700 episodes, you have stuff you can talk to him about. What has he said that pull the string for you and like just go deeper into that story. And then it's the willingness to be courageous with the question. So with Matthew, I was the most stressed out for him because I was gonna open with a question that I was nervous about. Because I was gonna say, well, and I did say, if you watch the opening, it's, you remind me of a modern day Texan Bruce Lee. And then I said, we should petition and change your name to Sensei McConaughey. And he ended up liking it, but I don't know, maybe he hates Bruce Lee, I have no idea. And because when he was leaving the whole point of why he was on this tour, because he wrote a book called Green Lights, and he was an actor getting paid to do rom-coms, and he didn't want to do, he's like, I'm done with rom-com, I don't want to be this rom-com guy anymore. And he took 1.5 years off because he couldn't get another job in acting unless it was a rom-com. Even when they threw like $40 million at him, like, I'm not taking it, I'm not doing rom-coms for 1.5 years. And he contemplated other careers that he would do. And he was gonna be, he had like football coach, high school teacher, tour guide, like tourist, taking people around, and something else. And as he told that story, that same story to everybody, that same story, right? So I shortcut it. It's like, so when you were gonna quit, you were thinking about these 4 things, right? That takes 20 seconds to say it. What I found interesting was they all seem to be around teaching. Like a high school football coach, you're teaching, the teacher obviously teaching, a tour guide, you're still like teaching. Do you love teaching? It's like, huh, right? And led to this moment. And then at the end, his very last comment in the video was like, that whole teaching thing, like I'm gonna think about that. And so I saw a pattern that maybe other people saw too. It's not that I'm a genius, but in shortcutting the pattern, in shortcutting his story, we were able to get to a cool new question that also made him think. And then he went off and he started teaching too. Like he had his whole launch with Dean, and I forget what he called it, but he did the whole personal development thing teaching. Not because of me, but just, it's in him, which is cool. But in his book, he's talking about, he's obviously an actor, but he is very philosophical, which I didn't know about him. And he was wrestling. He's wrestling the African warrior. And so like he's an athlete, he is a philosopher, he's an actor, and maybe think of Bruce Lee. Who else is that? Who else is an athlete and somebody who's an actor and also a philosopher is like Bruce Lee. But he's Texan. So that's why I led with your modern day Texan Bruce Lee, Sensei McConaughey. And that helped me remember his name because I was so terrified I was gonna get it wrong. McConaughey. Like don't, for whatever reason, I always just called him Matthew McConaughey. And that's not how you say his name. So my own mental model was Sensei McConaughey. And I didn't know how he would like it. He ended up loving it, but it's different, and it's a fun start to a video instead of, okay, with me is 14-time whatever winning actor, author of the new book, and like read his corporate bio, right? It's a very different start. So now you're already different. And worst case, he hates Bruce Lee, but I can make it up by explaining the methodology because the intention was to honor him, right? It's like, here's why I say it, because of these things, right? So at least I feel like I'd save it even if it went south, right? But it's definitely a unique interview. So the prep is, back to your question, is looking at other videos, seeing what they've talked about, and then seeing where can I go deeper than what they shared, and being the one to pull that out of them, because they may not even be thinking that way themselves. And if they don't have other interviews, where are they posting anything? Are they on Twitter sharing some thoughts? Are they on LinkedIn sharing some thoughts? Sign up for their newsletter and see what just to try to get inside their head a little bit to see what they're sharing. And then what's the next step that they're not talking about that you're genuinely curious about pulling on?
You're taking all my content from the mastermind. That was one of them.
Well, you asked the question, Evan. And listen, they won't see this until later.
That's
so
true.
You're
that's
good.
True. So I have so many questions going on, but I'll never forget when Alan and I first reached out to you. We were living in Florida for the month.
Okay.
We reached out to you. I didn't even know who you were at the time.
Okay.
Alan said, this guy, he's the 10 lessons guy on YouTube, all this stuff. And we messaged you and you sent us a video back either in the airport or in the grocery store. I don't remember.
Okay.
Well, I was like, this is my kind of guy. What type of messages, emails, whatever, catch your eye in terms of being a guest on someone's show? Because I know people want to get big guests and they might not have the numbers, they might not have the downloads, whatever it is. Is there anything that people can do to increase the likelihood of somebody way ahead of them coming on?
Yeah, okay, so booking guests, this is great. I have lots of strategies for this. This will be fun. First off, some people care about numbers and that's all they care about. And so cool. It's like, I don't even hold that against them. Like that's what they care about. Okay, so when I have X, I'll come back. It's like, and you just keep updating them every 6 months. Hey, we're at blank now. You think it's a fit? Cool. A lot of people hold that against them. Like, oh, this person is like, whatever, arrogant. Okay, I mean, if you don't want to have them on, you don't have them on. But it's a transaction both ways. They can help you. You can still learn from them. For me, I say, I mean, my team gets mad at me. Maybe this will be helpful for them to watch because they don't understand why because I'll say no to things that make a lot of sense and say yes to things that don't make a lot of sense. But I'm not focused on what makes sense. It's just like, do I like this person? That's a quick vibe check, right? And so first off, so how to increase your likelihood? One, be where they are. So where are they responding to people, right? So some people might be better on Twitter versus LinkedIn versus Instagram versus somewhere else, right? So you message me on Instagram, I'll spend more time on Instagram than I will looking at my LinkedIn comments or DM. So you could LinkedIn DM me till you're blue in the face. I'm just never gonna see it. It's always my team. So you're almost always gonna get a no from team. Like team is designed to keep the person safe, right? So you're always going to get a no almost from the team if you're trying to hit up. But Instagram, I'm spending more personal time. My team's also in there, but I'm on there. So that's already the first hack. Where are they personally responding? And look at the comments and see, like, do you think that person responded to that comment, or does it feel like it's a team vanilla comment, right? Next, make sure you're following them. Somebody sends me a message, I'll check. Like, who is this person? And they say like, oh, I love your content, man, you inspire me so much. You go look at their account, like they're not following you.
Right.
Like, you do, what are you doing? Like, that's an easy, basic, like just make sure you're actually following the person that you're reaching out to. I see how like ChatGPT the thing looks versus does it actually connect? And then I'll usually watch, if I'm spending this much time, right? Like that, if they're failing those things, next, right? But assuming they get there, then I'll watch one of their reels and just see if I like them. And it's really just off of that. So I don't remember what you said, and I don't know what was on your IG profile at the time. It's like, yeah, okay, let's go, Kevin. and then that's it. And then it's like, screenshot this, send it to my assistant, and she'll figure out a time to make it all happen. And there are other people who just, I don't know, I just don't get a positive vibe. I'm sure they're a good person, just doesn't feel good. So it's a heart thing. So that's why it's hardest for my team, because they don't understand what criteria. Like, look for a good person. Great, thank you, that's very clear. And just something that I think I would have fun with. But so strategies, say something personal. Don't use ChatGPT. Follow them on whatever profile you're on so they see that you're following them. I would do probably a mix between a text component and then ideally a video.
Okay.
A video alone takes time. Like if you send me a 45-second video, I gotta spend time watching your video, and I'm probably not gonna do it. So the text teases out what's in the video. And if you sent me a good video, I don't have to take the step to then look at your feed, right? But I would do both, text and then video. So you have that combination. And if they don't see it, like, don't freak out. Or if it says red and you don't hear anything back, it's like they don't hate you. It's okay. They're just busy people, right? Or maybe their team saw it, or they liked you but then forgot to respond. Like, we overthink all these things. I sent them a message and they read it and they didn't write back to me. They hate me. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed, right? Like, don't overthink a lot of this stuff. People are busy. And then another hack I would use is on a platform like Instagram, whatever guests you have on your show. So like if you have me on your show, or somebody you have, well, two actually. So say you want to get me on your show. Perfect. I am following people who are way smaller than me and easier to get to. I'm following Grant Cardone, who's going to be way harder to get to than me. I'm also following Alex A.N., who runs Toronto Dance Salsa, who's going to be way easier to get to than me. So the hack becomes, go invite Alex on your show. And then go invite some other people that I'm following on your show. So then when you reach out to me, you say, yeah, we've had Alex A.N. on. You had Alex A.N. on your podcast? What? And then I'm going to go to Alex. Hey, Alex, you did this show with Kevin, this guy Kevin, Never Quit Kid. How was it? Oh my God, Kevin was awesome. He asked me this great question. Huh. Okay. Now I'm more likely to say yes, because I have a personal connection with them. And every big name is following easy people to get a hold of, right? So that's an easy hack to work your way up. And then just, if you really want the person, keep hacking whoever they're following. Like, I'm following Alex for a reason. I have tons of followers, but that doesn't mean anything to me. To say that you had whoever on your show, I don't know, who's that person? But if I'm following Alex, you had him on, that's pretty cool. Alex, is this guy legit, or was it a total waste of time, right? So expect him to expect the person to then ask the person. I'm not just gonna say, yeah, I'm on because Alex was on your show. But if Alex said that was a great episode, right? I'm more likely to say yes, and then just hack 10 other people that I am following, and you can do the same thing. So that's an easy way to get a guest. The next way is, if you have somebody on, who is following them? So if you have Alex on, who is following Alex? Like, you're having Alex on either because you're trying to hack me, or because you really love Alex and you want to have one. But there are other people who are following him. where his name will mean something. The people who are following me, like my name in the general community doesn't mean anything. Like you trying to get, I don't know, you want to get Ronaldo on your show or something, right? We've had Evan Carmichael on, like who?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything in soccer circles or football or whatever, right? But in certain circles, that would mean a lot. Oh, you had Evan on? Huh, okay, that's interesting. And so the easy way to find out is who's following me. Anybody who's following me knows who I am. So my name would hopefully mean at least a little bit to those people.
Right.
You can reach out then, if you already had me on, you reach out to them, somebody on that list, and say, hey, we had Evan Carmichael on, do you want to come on? If you want to get to, Grant Cardone follows me, you want to get to Grant, saying my name gets you a little bit closer than not saying my name, only because he follows me and knows who I am. Right? So both of those hacks can work really well. You still need I would still send a text message, like copy, write it out, send a video, and follow them, and say something in the message that is actually meaningful to you, so it feels personal. And then using the hacking, the following, who are they following and have them on, and who's following them, and then have them on to quickly, an old mentor of mine said, like you pull sweaters to get to the front of the line. So it's like you're pulling on these different sweaters to move up.
I can speak to that. In the beginning, our first big guest was Lori Harder, 34 episodes in. Then we went and saw her in person. Then Chris Harder came on, and then it was like, oh, we've had Lori Harder and Chris Harder, and it was Lori Harder, Chris Harder, and so yeah, I can definitely speak to the value of that.
Yeah, and some people will say yes just because they like it. So again, some people say yes because they want the numbers. Those are the hardest people to get at the beginning, right? Because you don't have X number of downloads. Cool, no. Or you don't even get a response. Some people will come on based off of who is on. So, oh, you're a small show, but you had Alex on? Huh, okay. And some people will come on just because they like the message and the vibe.
Yeah.
And so those are the people to target as you go up, and then you keep pulling sweaters to get to the front of the line.